Welcome, everyone. I'm Derek Hensley, Wealth Advisor here at Stewardship. And today we're going to be talking about the Kansas City real estate market. I have the pleasure of Pam Page joining us today. She is a real estate professional. She's been in the business since 2002, helping both buyers and sellers on Missouri and Kansas side things navigate all kind of market conditions throughout the years there. So we're excited to have her on and share her expertise and insight into the current market conditions for Kansas City. Pam, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Derek. Glad to be here. I'm
Yes.
excited to share a little bit about what's going on in the Kansas City metro.
Yes, yes. So tell us, what is the current market like? What's going on out there?
So that is a question that I get all the time. Most realtors
Hmm.
do. You're at an event with friends or even at a coffee shop, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're a realtor. What's happening in the market?"
Yep.
It's kind of like asking you, Derek, what's happening in the market,
Right.
right? There's so many
Yeah.
moving pieces.
Right. What do you mean by the market? Which
That's
area of
right.
the market?
It's
Yeah.
kinda hard to convince. You're going, "It's like the bond market, the this market, that."
Hmm.
So, but it still is it's a good question. So if I'm answering it as short and sweet to someone that's just, wanting a surfacey answer, I'll say, right
Hmm.
now, Kansas City market is strong and stable, is what I would say.
Good.
It's
Good.
strong and stable, so it's a good situation, for people that wanna buy or sell, and we've got a fair amount of inventory, still some limited areas. And then I wanna say to that person, and I would say to you, is there a specific area you're interested in? Are
Yeah.
you thinking about maybe buying? Are you thinking about maybe selling? Because I can talk more to that specific market and tell you what's going
Yeah.
on. Um, Sometimes I even use it's kind of a tale of two markets, kinda like a
Mm.
tale of two cities. So I work on both the Kansas and Missouri side, and we have ups and downs and changes and shifts on a monthly basis in
Yeah.
all of our markets. But one of the things I think people don't think about is the kind of the dividing line from a price point for markets.
Hmm.
Really, there's the market for the first time home buyers or the first or the move up home buyers, and then the mid range, and then the luxury. So it's the tale of multiple markets, really. So an interesting thing that's really happening now, and the same thing happened during COVID when we had such a shortage of inventory, but the price point was lower.
Hmm.
So right
Yes.
now, a- about 400, if I'm talking, let's talk about Johnson County.
Okay.
That's where I primarily do my business, although I do all over, but that's my primary location. In Johnson County, $450,000 home is sort of a breaking point right now. If you are a buyer and you can buy up to $450,000, you're almost 100% going to have to compete to get a good home.
Okay.
Our inventory is a little higher than it was last year, but also the buyer demand is a little higher as
Hmm.
the interest rates have stabilized and come down just a tiny bit, and people have kind of gotten used to the fact they're not going to get 3%. The buyers
Yes.
are coming back out. Yeah.
Right.
So, so on 450,000 and under, you can pretty much count on you need to think about, I'm going to have to compete to get the house that I want.
Hmm.
And over 450,000, you have a better chance as a buyer of maybe having a little bit uh, more selection and a
Okay.
little bit more power. It's not all the way to a buyer's market, but at least there's a little bit more going on there. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps with that. The other thing is when I'm talking to somebody who's really wanting to get in the market and they're saying, "What's the market like?" and I'm sitting with a potential client, I try to explain to them that if it's in the right location and you've
Hmm.
got a good lot and it's in good condition, maybe updated, and the major things are relatively current, and by major, it's the furnace, the air conditioner, the roof, the exterior condition of the house. If all of those things are just right, doesn't matter what your price point is, you're going to get multiple offers.
Yeah. Yeah. Any
So,
kind of current stories from, what's going on out there that really
oh,
highlight that?
sure, sure, yeah, yes, actually. Um, so I from a listing side, um, I had a colleague that listed a home. They got it all ready to go. They listed it last Friday for 950,000.
Okay.
Nice neighborhood, desirable neighborhood. in Johnson County, a story and a half, which is a desirable floor plan. It means the primary bedroom's on the main floor. It's a big house in a good location. So they listed it for 950,000, but they had done the staging, they had done the painting, they had refinished the hardwood floors, updated the landscaping, made sure all the major things were taken care of, and they had 8 offers and eventually got an offer that was $65,000 over their list price, for cash that was gonna be closing very quickly.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
they got over $1,000,000. We weren't expecting that, but there was a little frenzy, momentum that was created by
Yeah.
all the work the seller did to get
Yeah.
it to that point. And I have one that, at the 450,000. I had a listing that was 425. They had done all the work. It was beautiful. We had it
Mhm.
staged. They had planted new flower. They worked and got it all ready to go. We listed at 425. We had 18 offers. At 425,000, we had 18 offers,
Wow.
and our final offer came in at almost 500,000.
Holy cow.
490,000 for a middle Overland Park, like 90th.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. That sounds more like 2021, 2022, or whatever, kind of
Exactly.
those crazy,
And
like, lining the streets, everybody's beating down the doors to get in the house. That's fantastic. 18 offers, and
and
just
that's
because they
what was
did the
happening.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in COVID, except for it was at 350,000.
Right. Yes.
And
Okay.
now
Yeah.
we're 5 years later, and we're
Yep.
at 400, about 450,000. So, but and as I've been working with, a couple of buyers this week in that price range, we've been visiting quite a few $425,000 houses, and so it's a
Yeah.
great way to educate my buyers on what does it look like. So,
Yeah.
we went into 2 different houses on, last weekend. One they wanted to write an offer on, and the other they decided to pass. So, we wrote an offer on one, and they weren't able to get it under contract because the listing agent shared with me that it went under contract for almost
Mhm.
460,000, and it was priced at 425.
Yeah.
The other one we went into that looked like it had a lot of damage on the exterior, woodpecker damage,
Mhm.
windows needed to be replaced. There was a lot of issues with the ceiling. They hadn't had an opportunity to really get it cleaned up, but it was a really prime location in Overland
Yeah.
Park. And the agent called me on Monday and said, "We didn't get any offers at 425. Are your people still interested?" And it was a great location and a good
Yeah.
floor plan. Um, and it was just too scary.
Yeah.
It was too scary. The buyers are just like, "I don't know how much it's gonna cost for me to fix
Right.
that."
Yep.
And they also so anyway, hopefully that helps. Some
Yeah.
examples of what's going on out there.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And what some things I don't realize is this back and forth between the agents, right? How
Yeah,
helpful that is to know of like, hey, are we way off? Because you're trying to that's the real time interaction with the market, right?
right.
And so you don't have that, there can be prices out there or whatnot, but hey, are we close? Where are we off? And that way, if you don't get that deal, then maybe that helps you on the next one there. And so just having that guide like you are through that process there is super beneficial. I mean, just hearing these stories there, it's like I can imagine the roller coaster,
Oh,
for buyers or sellers there. It's just an emotional time, and having someone to
it
navigate that is
it is. It's
very
definitely
beneficial.
emotion, and that is one of our primary responsibilities as an
Hmm.
agent is to drain some of that emotion
Yes.
out of it for the buyer and the seller
Yeah.
so that they can make a as best as possible, clear-headed, good financial decision. Because it primarily is a financial decision when you're talking
Right.
about that size of an investment. But I'm glad you did mention that, though, because Kansas City is a great community of real estate agents
Hmm.
that, nobody wants to tell somebody they didn't get a house when we've said they've fallen in love with it, they can imagine raising their family here, or they can imagine retire whatever it is. Nobody wants to have to tell them that they don't get to have that house, and so
Yes.
after the fact, if the sellers permit it, then the agent can share with us, the other buyer's agents, "Here's what happened, here's what
Hmm.
got it," so that you can share with your buyers so they know next time they might have to do this in order to get that house, or we need to change strategies,
Yes.
find something lower.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. What would you say is like a really important tip right now for the buyers? What are some things they need to that they can control to kind of get in the best position possible
You
for
bet.
the market?
And this goes across to all price points, really, if you're a
Hmm.
buyer. Um, to put yourself in the very best position you can be, save as much cash as you can.
Okay.
Yeah, even though there's people out there buying properties for all cash, you can still compete if you've got a good down payment, if you've got some room in the offer to go up um, in your bid throughout the
Yeah.
process. And there's also levers or strategies that we use to help buyers get noticed or get their offer kind of go up the ladder. And one of those is we have something called an appraisal waiver.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've worked with that or understand or heard that
Yeah. Tell me
phrase.
more about that. I don't think I've come across that before.
It really started happening during the COVID era,
Okay.
is when we started seeing some of these really sort of different techniques in order to win the offer.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, if we're talking about a $425,000 house and someone comes in and says, "Well, I'll pay 500,000 for it."
Yeah.
Right? You're like, "Oh, great." Well, if they have a mortgage, if they're going to be getting a mortgage, and most people
Yeah.
do for a $500,000 house, that bank is gonna do an appraisal and that
Hmm.
house has to appraise for that 500,000 in order for it to go through.
Okay.
Well, especially during COVID, we were going just crazy bonkers over these
Yes.
$350,000 houses, and, in the higher you get, the less difference $20,000 makes, but
Right. Yeah. Yep.
so we're trying to create an offer that makes the seller have the lowest amount of risk.
Hmm.
So so we can do an appraisal waiver, which says essentially either we waive the entire appraisal because I have $200,000 in cash that I can access if I need to make up the difference between the appraisal and the sales price.
Yeah.
And you don't see that as much. Sometimes you'll see they'll write in, we'll give you a 10,000 or a $20,000 appraisal waiver, which essentially means as long as the house appraises within $20,000 of our
Yeah.
sales price, the transaction moves forward with no risk for the seller.
Okay.
So, just save your pennies. Save them, save them, save them. Don't spend a bunch of money. Get as much savings as you can in place because that is just going to make the process less stressful and easier to shift if we need to change strategies.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a good point is anytime there's a life transition, in our, financial planning brains, we're thinking, hey, cash to navigate the transition. And that applies
Right.
to real estate. That can apply to bank
That's
accounts, retirement, living expense, all that stuff. It's cash is your friend when you're making big decisions and
for
transitioning
you.
from
Yes.
life stages or spaces and all that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
good.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
The other thing I think I'd like to share when I sit down and do a strategy session with my buyers
Yeah.
is helping them set expectations
Mhm.
for what they might see, what they think they want. What are your
Yeah.
must-haves? What are your no way, can't live with that, no way, can't have only one bathroom or whatever that
Right.
is. And that usually changes. So we check in along the way. It's like, looks like you're looking at things with three-car garages. Have you changed your mind on
Yes.
that?
Right, yeah. You're like, "I heard this earlier, now I'm seeing
No,
this.
I'm
Tell me, tell me
exactly.
where we're at now." Yeah. Yeah, you
So,
have
and
you have a really interesting, framework around this. Yeah, definitely,
yeah.
share with us, how
Oh,
you kind of navigate that.
yep. So I encourage them to recognize that we're going to see all kinds of houses, but the likelihood
Mhm.
of us finding a house that has all 10 major things checked off is
Right.
slim. It can
Yep.
happen, but if it checks off all your boxes, it also checks off 30 other buyers' boxes. So
Yes.
you're going to be competing for sure.
Yep.
So I try and coach them to expect what I call the 70-20-10 rule.
Okay.
So our hope is to find a house that's 70% has 70% of all the things you really want. Bathrooms, bedrooms, yard, fenced in yard, three-car garage, storage, whatever that is. And then hopefully we'll get 70%. And then 20% are things that you can change in the future.
Yeah.
So either, well, there's room to add another bathroom there, and we
Yeah.
can we can do that next year. We don't have it
Finish the
now, or
basement.
right.
Yeah.
I can't stand the color of this house.
Yes.
We can change that, right?
Right.
And then 10% is just something you're gonna have to put up with. Things you
Mhm.
really didn't want in a house, eh, and you're just gonna have to put up with it because it's something that can't be changed. The
Yeah.
location,
Yeah.
the direction the house faces.
Mhm.
It's just expensive to move those,
Right,
um,
right.
you really wanted a full basement or you really wanted a walkout basement.
Yeah,
And this house has everything except for it doesn't have a walkout basement. That might be
yeah.
something in which you're like, we're just gonna have to live with that because
Yep.
we like everything else. So that's kind of
Yeah,
what I do with the buyers.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's super helpful. So that's a 70-20-10
yeah,
kind of
yep.
framework there. I love the
70
numbers
is just
there.
right.
Yeah,
20 is something I could change now or in the future, and 10% is I'm just gonna have to live with it.
yeah. That's very helpful there.
Yeah.
And, that's part of the strategy session. What else is involved in kinda getting buyers up and going?
So,
In
connecting them with the professional in the lending industry is
Yeah,
the very first thing, no matter what, because they're
yeah,
gonna also coach them, for what they need to do in terms of saving, um, curb their spending,
yes,
give them an idea of what they really can afford, and you have to
yeah,
do that very first, or you end up looking at houses that are outside of their price range, and it's
yep,
disappointing for everybody.
yep.
So we start with, yeah, having the conversation about what kind of cash they need to have, talking to a lender, and setting their expectations.
Good,
They're kind of the
good.
primary.
Yeah,
On the
that's
same
great.
hand, I do the strategy session for the sellers.
Yes, yeah, let's hear about that.
So, that is very, very, very house dependent.
Okay.
But if I were going to talk to kind of what's happening in the Kansas City market and what sellers, if you're thinking about selling in the next year or two, what could you be doing that would be adding value
Yeah,
to your home today that would you would reap the rewards of that? The first thing I would say is if you're considering selling, contact your agent.
mhm,
Um, it's always a surprise to people the things that our buyers really do look for.
yeah,
They think, "Oh my gosh, I have to redo this bathroom, this powder room, this extra half bath. That is so out of date. I have to redo it." Well, it's there. That's a
yeah,
good. You have it.
yep,
None of the other houses in your price range have a powder room on the main floor, so you've got it. It checks the box. It's not worth the $5,000 to redo it.
right,
Uh, or I've got to replace all the carpeting. Or oh my goodness, I have to paint these walls. Contact your real estate agent. They'll come in and say, "Hey, over the next year," and I do that all the time with people that are thinking, "I'm gonna sell this time next year."
yeah,
So I'll go ahead and come in and help them figure out what's the strategy, what should they tackle, and getting ready to list a house in Lee Summit in 2 weeks, and we were 2 years ago.
oh, wow, yeah,
They thought they were going to get ready to list, and then they had some changes with their kiddos, and so 3
mhm,
weeks ago, she called and said, "Okay, we're ready to go."
yeah,
And
well,
we finally finished your list.
yeah, and what's nice about that, though, is if there are things that need updated, you get to enjoy the updates, they got to if they
Exactly.
lean into those
They did.
recommendations,
They
it's
got
like, "Oh,
hardwoods
great."
put in their
Yeah,
whole main floor, and after they did it, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so
yeah,
beautiful. I love it." Now they've gotten to enjoy it for 2 years.
yes, yeah,
So that kinda leads me to one of the other, things that I'm sharing with sellers that I think they don't maybe recognize, maybe they do. Um, I love all the small houses that we have in Kansas City that have so much character. They're on
mhm,
small lots, and they've
yep,
got a lot of character, either Waldo, Brookside, Mission,
yes,
Miriam, Old Overland Park, any of those. But a lot of them are small. They're on these little 936 square foot footprints. You
mhm,
wouldn't believe how many have 836 or 936 square feet.
right,
So, the outdoor living space has become a massive seller
yeah,
for those smaller homes.
yeah,
So if you've got 1,000 square feet in your home and you're able to put on a deck in a small deck, even in the front,
yeah,
or a patio, larger outside space in the back, and have it easily accessible and connected to the house. And
yeah,
then we stage that and make sure it's furnished and feels like another living space.
yeah,
So you take a 1,000 square foot house and you add even a 10 by 10 deck. That's now you've got another 200 square feet. And it just feels like, oh, the kitchen's kind of
mhm,
tiny, but it feels like, oh, well, here's this whole space out here.
right, yeah. Yeah, you're adding so much, like, so much square footage, that people can envision having people over, family, friends,
Yeah.
building community in there. I think that's a great point of, and even adding like covered spaces.
I
That's
was just gonna
adding a little
say
bit
that.
more, but it's like those
No,
really stand out. It's like
I
I
was
always, when I'm driving around, I was like, oh wow, that's a nice little covered back deck there. That's really impressive. Those always pop. It feels like.
that is so funny you said that because one of my very best friends just spent the money to redo her deck.
Yeah.
And, the numbers would be like it was gonna be $30,000 because it's a
Mm-hmm.
tall deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "You should think about covering that." She's like, "Oh, no, I don't think so." And she decided to do it, and it was an extra $10,000, and now it's like another room.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
she has a fan hanging
Mm,
down. It encloses it and makes it feel. I mean, it will
yes.
sell her house because people
Yeah.
don't have to come up with $40,000 to do, and if it's something that you can do, you will get it back for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great. And so, for the sellers, we talked about adding spaces either inside, doing some updates, and I on the list are there. I'm envisioning like must do preferences, and then like don't waste your time. Is that typically kind of the framework you give on kind of when you do a walkthrough with someone who's getting ready to list?
I do. I
Yeah.
I have I have a standard list, um, that I hand out, but one of the
Yeah.
things that's easy to remember is, like, the 3 Cs. So,
Okay.
it needs to be super clean.
Clean.
It people you I cannot undersell how much people notice and appreciate a clean house.
Yeah.
It leads them to believe you have cared for your house, whether you have or
Yes.
not.
Right.
Right, hire somebody to come in and do a deep clean. So
Yeah.
clean, clutter-free,
Mhm.
and when I bring a stager in, the they say, "Remove everything off the entire kitchen counter," and they're like, "Even
Yeah.
my coffee maker?" And they're like, "Yes, even your coffee maker,
Yeah.
all gone. Nothing on your fridge." It just
Yeah.
it they need they need to feel the volume of the space, and the more things you
Yes.
have in there, the less voluminous it feels.
Yeah.
Voluminous? Voluminous,
Yes.
voluminous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the last thing is current. So I say if you can get it clean, if you can get it clutter-free, and get it as current as possible. And
Yeah.
sometimes that means paint colors. If there's something that's really, really out of date, that's really stands out as being,
Yeah.
not current, let's tackle that.
Yeah.
At least
So
it
are
gives you
you
things.
are you saying anytime you walk in and you see popcorn ceilings, you're like, "Hey, get to work, buddy," or is it there's a little bit of grace on some of those
Oh my gosh. Did my husband call you about the popcorn ceilings? He's like,
I have
"Pam,
one room with popcorn
notice
ceilings. Right.
nobody notices the popcorn ceilings like you do."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yes, they do."
Yes.
But no.
You're like, all my agent friends notice and they're telling all the buyers. Yeah, right, right. Yeah,
So
no.
you'll find out quickly I find out quickly with my buyers whether they care or don't care, and it's
Yeah,
really 50-50.
yeah,
Most people are looking at the space unless somebody in their life has said, "What do you think of those popcorn ceilings?" And now
yeah,
they're obsessed with not having them. But no, that is something you can paint your ceilings. Paint a
yeah,
popcorn ceiling. Ceilings never get painted, and if you paint that ceiling, it's like brightens your room up just like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great. So it's clean and then take care of the clutter. So clean,
clutter-free
clutter, and
and current.
then current. Yeah,
Yeah,
that is super helpful. I love the three C's. It seems so simple, but I would argue most people watching this video has seen listings that you're like, why did they post this? This looks messy or this looks super cluttered. Feels small and
right.
cramped. It's like put your best foot forward, attention to detail. No house is perfect, but this idea of like control the things that you can control, the clean, the clutter, and the current there, and get yourself positioned there for a solid listing there.
Yeah.
It seems so basic, but there's tons of listings that don't follow those three C's, and you're like, what are you doing here?
They don't understand the potential, income that their money that they're giving up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as part of those three C's, where do you land on staging? I'm seeing a lot. Obviously, staging has been around where it's actually, rented, or if you have good furniture, keeping yours in place, but also
Right.
some digital staging is what I'm seeing now. kind of talk about how important that is. What do you recommend for that for the sellers?
That that's a great question. Yes. So I always recommend some staging. So
Okay.
in my business, I pay for a stager, a professional person to come in and walk through the home with me and the homeowner, um, especially to say, we need to go ahead and get rid of that piece of furniture, that piece of
Yeah.
furniture, but help me evaluate it with the homeowner. And this person then can kind of be the bad guy, the
Oh,
bad
nice.
bad guy.
Yes.
So they
Yeah.
can say, "Oh, wow, we definitely need to paint this room," or whatever. So
Right.
I prepare my homeowner by saying, they're gonna just be raw. This
Yeah.
is not anything about this is just a professional opinion, and then after they leave, we'll digest what they've said and suggested and figure out what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So sometimes that does mean so staging is really a professional stager, and the reason they are stagers and not decorators is they understand what this is going to look like on a photograph.
Mm. Yeah.
So they're going to lay out the room so that it's going to capture the best possible angles for the room and the
Yes.
best possible light in the room and show off the features of the house, not necessarily the furniture. I think having somebody come in is important so they can help back up what you're saying as an agent, the clean, the clutter free, that we need to do this.
Hmm.
We want to know that nobody wants to know that a dog lives here. Nobody wants to know that a cat lives
Right.
here. So we got
Yeah.
to get those things fixed. And
Yep.
then, depending on the furniture that they have, if every piece of furniture is so out of date, it tends to date the house, even if the
Yeah.
house has some updates.
Hmm.
So in those cases, sometimes it's better to go ahead and have them move on out if they can, and just bring in a few of those key areas like the living room, the kitchen, and the primary bedroom with some updated furniture that you then the homeowner actually pays for that rental
Yeah.
of the furniture. And it's not that, we can do a small home in Mission, one of those little 1,000 square foot homes I was talking about for about $1,500.
Good.
And it could make a 5 to 10 to $20,000 difference.
Okay. That's
So
a
when
good
the
return
buyers
on your
walk
money.
in, it feels current because you've got all this beautiful gold furniture or,
Right.
types of all these new things, and it feels current, and they don't look so much at, "Wow, those hardwood floors seem to be refinished." They've got a
Yeah.
beautiful rug there. So
Yes. Yes, yeah, I think, what's great is that it will not take away from any updates you've done, it'll enhance it,
enhance
or it can help hide some updates you should have done and you didn't, potentially.
exactly.
But if it's dated, you're walking in and it's this color that's like, "Oh, that was from the '70s," or there's plastic print, there's plastic on the couch or whatever, back in the old days. It's like, "Okay, yeah, this is feeling old everywhere I look now." It kind of gets them in a wrong frame of mindset there that
Right.
you're not wanting the buyers to approach there for
And
sure.
super quick on the digital staging, which is becoming, easier and easier for us to do with AI.
Yeah.
It has to be printed on the bottom that it's been staged digitally on the
Okay.
photograph. So I do love when you see the room empty and then here's what it might look like,
Yeah.
digitally enhanced, and some of that is, paint the cabinets white. It's like, here's what it would
Okay.
look like if you painted the cabinets white. There's a lot of
Yeah.
uses for that, but we do have to be very open so we're not, confusing the consumer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That
yeah.
that's great. Yeah, those disclosures are important there, for
Wow, we
sure.
talked about a lot.
Yes, I was just gonna say, like, this has been super helpful, Pam. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your insights. We covered kind of the price point differences on the current market, where that 425, 450 range, it's still very competitive.
Mhm.
Above there, it's still not necessarily a buyer's market, is what I heard you sharing, but
Right.
there's a little bit more wiggle room. For buyers there. And then I love the 70-20-10 framework for buyers as they're thinking about what's really important to them, putting those in the
Yep.
70% bucket, the 20% could change, and then the 10% it's never gonna have, being okay with that. And then the 3 C's, the clean, declutter, and current,
Right, you
the
got it.
updates there. Yeah, super helpful as we're thinking about buying or selling, how to approach that there. And so, Pam, I just wanna say thank you again. for joining us today, for your
You're
insights, your
welcome.
expertise. You've been doing this a long time, helping a lot of people throughout the years. And right now, I mean, your phone's been buzzing off the hook there. We're doing our prep work there. So it's just, it's a great time to be active in the market. So if anybody's looking to buy or sell, please reach out to Pam. She'd be a
Yep.
great resource to help you through that transaction there. For our
Thanks,
next
Deb.
video, we're going to cover the Rothification of retirement there. So our goal is to help build the nest egg, build the assets that go then buy the house you've always wanted there. So we'll get you ready to go meet with Pam there and be in a good spot. So just thank you all for joining us today. If you've liked this video, if you found it helpful, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.